Hello, today we have Dr. Markus with us, with whom we're going to discuss about his fantastic study that he did about data-based decision-making. Hello, Markus. Good to have you with us today.
Thank you, Alex, for your invitation and having me on your show. And I'm very glad to share our recent findings on database decision-making in retail, e-commerce, and wholesale. And the reason why I'm so passionate about sharing this study is that I always carried a gut feeling about the decision-making processes in companies. And my gut feeling was that most decisions are based on gut feeling. And that's why I conducted a database study to figure out whether that's actually true. And Alex, I'm most grateful that you have me on the show and to share the results of this study.
Markus, thank you very, very much for being with us today. Indeed, what you said about gut feelings and data is a topic that troubles, from my experience, many people. And your study, because I read all presentations of that, is quite interesting because is, as you mentioned, involves every sector of the market and every person of the market, regardless of level, from C-levels down to team leaders, huge companies of multi-billion to companies of just a few million, organizations with well above 2,000, 5,000 employees, or teams up to 20, 50 people. So as it includes everybody, some questions have started popping into my mind, and let's see how we can assist and explain these things to people that are either not very experienced or people that have that experience, how they can also benefit from that. Because data usually never lies. So my first observation in your study is that the majority of the respondents emphasized on the need of making data-based decisions, regardless if they're currently working with them or not. But when it comes to actually using the data, it seems that less than half are using them. And it gets even worse because less than that percentage is either don't have the data or don't have the support to make these decisions. So my question is, why do you think this is happening?
That's a very interesting question. So we found out that 50% of companies agree I know companies with billions of dollars of revenue who have working students looking up competitor prices on the internet and putting the numbers they found into an Excel sheet. So the data is just not there. Second, the data is there, but not available. Very simple. Also from a pricing context. For example, you need your transaction data and your product data. They live in completely different silos. You need many more data, but at least these two. You have static catalog data and transaction data, but they are not linked to each other. So then you put everything in your Power BI and do some manual magic to get into the position to make a database decision. But 90% of the time used for this database decision is to preparing data. And lastly, if you make a database decision, how do you do it? Do you sit in front of your data and your Excel sheet in a very wide screen and you figure out, okay, I see the data. What is the answer? Data-based, so a decision support system is usually lacking. How do you make the decision? And usually for this specific use case of making the decision, the system is missing. And these are the three reasons.
Understood. So if I understand it correctly, so it's the lack of fresh data from the first start, because when you start gathering the data, when the time comes to use them, they're obsolete. Actually, the labor work to gather the data is often lacking data points. And of course, what to do with all of them if you don't have the software or the logic to implement them?
I couldn't agree more. Yes.
It's very clear, and I think your point is very valid because there are many companies that currently struggle with these two basic steps for going into pricing and database decision making. So in contrast to one might expect, though, in your research, it seems that the highest benefits when using database decisions are not higher sales or margin, which obviously they're in the list. That's why companies operate and sell. But the top three are related to internal processes, actually, which, with no doubt from my point of view, play a critical role in the day-to-day business. And usually, they seem to be overlooked. And I'm referring to the time and the cost saving, where via higher efficiency, reduction of problems caused by poor decisions, and faster decision-making. So these are the three most important things. And if you look to this from a more lean management perspective, it makes, to my eyes at least, absolute sense. Is it something that you expected to find in the research? And the reason I'm asking is that findings like this demonstrate a mature approach from companies, from management, from people to database decision making.
Yes. No, I didn't expect this to rank so high. I thought the business impact, like better margins, more revenue, more satisfied customers, would rank much higher. But looking at the results, they make actually sense. So psychologically, pain hurts more than pleasure, or gains deliver pleasure. And I think the points that are on the top of the list show the pain people have currently with the current decision-making processes. Mm-hmm. For example, cost savings through higher efficiency. What they're actually experiencing is it takes hours to make a simple decision. So this is the pain. Or the cost savings, or the time we save for correcting or fix poor decisions. And I think all of the people we interviewed or who took part in the study have at least one scenario in mind when this actually happened. And last, faster decision making actually means currently it's overwhelmingly long. So I think at the top of the list are not like opportunities or gains. It's about fixing current pain points. And as pain hurts more than gains deliver pleasure, they make sense that they are on the top. And I'm happy to see those because they are honest and an honest reflection on what is going on in companies. And this explains why we included only management levels from the lowest level in management, like team leaders up to CEOs, to get an idea about what is currently going on. Not only experts and individual contributors who kind of share their frustrations about the processes, but to involve those who actually shape the processes. And it's very interesting that they have so much self-reflection to see that the process they are partially responsible for deliver so much inefficiency.
So this actually verifies the old saying, time is money, because mostly it's about time here. You lose time every time. Money as well, but time you can get back.
And what is not included here is the better decisions you make with the time you would have saved, because everybody works only so many hours. But if they would spend 10 hours less on decision making, probably they would make more decisions or even better ones.
Also, on the other hand, though, and in contrast to what we just discussed, is the fact that when you examine the obstacles, people and specific management seems to be an obstacle in around 1/3 of the companies, based on the research, as they don't know or don't want to prepare or change the decision-making process. I would like your comment actually on that contradiction, that while people seem to have the maturity to understand the benefits of data-based decision-making, at the same time, they seem reluctant or unwilling to implement them.
Yes, it seems contradicting that because we involve managers, that managers claim that managers do not have the right skills or are reluctant to change, actually also obstacles to implement database decision-making. And my interpretation and the anecdotal evidence that I have from conversations with managers is also threefold. First, there's kind of an inertia. So there is a system and environment within the company, how decisions are made. So usually if you make decisions, your manager also makes decisions in his own way, and he demands the way you would make decisions as well. So it seems like that managers don't have the creativity or the imagination how the database decision-making could be implemented in the companies. And if they refer to managers lack the skills, and they probably refer to their upper-level management that don't know how they could actually implement it or are unwilling to do so. The unwillingness to do so is probably psychological. Of course, they are all smart people. But if they need to agree that the way decisions are made today is not ideal, they would probably admit they would have done a mistake or a wrong decision in the past. So it needs a very mature personality to say, okay, the way we do decisions and I did decisions in the past is not ideal. We should change it as a company. And these 3 points, like the inertia of a organizational system, not knowing the tools or ways, lacking the imagination how it looked like. If you never saw how decisions could be made otherwise and you are with the company since 10 years, you just don't know how to do it. And lastly, it requires less of an ego to decide, hey guys, we need to change the decisions, the way we make decisions, and probably they were not ideal. Even my decisions were not ideal in the past.
So
Yes.
this actually, understand from your answer, is that there's a distance between upper management and the person that actually does the job and is responsible for that and has to do it, so they cannot get into their shoes. And so they don't really understand what is required for that. And also brings to my mind that if something works, just don't change it for now. So this is also a kind of thing that it's working so far. So why bother? Why enter into new adventures?
Yes, the question here is, what is the indication of it does not work? Because nobody knows the counterfactual outcome of better decisions. They make a decision and probably the goal that they intended comes to plays out, and they reach their objectives. Maybe the objective was too low. The decision could have been done faster. The route to reaching the goal or objective could have been shorter. Nobody knows what the outcome of an other decision would have been. Nobody knows what is the actual benefit. And that's why companies believe the benefit of database decision-making is reducing the pain of making decisions as of today, and not so much what are we probably gaining. Unless the company is in financial trouble, then probably getting more revenue and higher margins is more critical, because the current level of financial performance is too painful. Yes,
it's totally clear, and I totally agree with this, Markus. So further on in your research, when analyzing the impact of database decisions, you separate actually companies into 2 main categories, and it's based on how much they rely on data. So your first category is the data kings, as you mentioned them, and the other one is the data laggards, where kings obviously rely mostly on data, where the laggards rely sometimes on data. And the kings seem to be quite more confident when making a decision, where the laggards are usually in a more neutral mood, so neither confident nor skeptical. Where I would like to focus is their performance versus their important competitors, which in the research seems to be slightly better for data kings and more or less similar for data laggards. So this creates into my mind actually 2 questions. The first one is, does this mean that the main competition of each group is approximately at the same data of literacy in data? And if so, what do you believe would be the performance gap between when you compare a data king versus a data laggard, if they're the main competitor?
What we did was to answer the question whether database decision-making is nice to have, or does it actually create an impact? And to do so, we ask all participants in the study about the degree to which they make decisions based on data. We have a standardized score that is based on academic literature, and we divided the whole set into 3 parts. And we took the top 25% of those companies who use data for decision making and the bottom 25% and compared 2 things. First, the confidence or the quality of decisions. Because our causal chain was, we use data, we have better decision. Because of better decision, we have a financial impact. And the first step is a better quality of decisions. Out of a 7-point scale, data kings have on average 6 out of 7 points. So they are quite confident. And the data laggards are 2 steps below. They are on 4 out of 7. So they are neutral about the confidence about their decisions. And neutral means they are not confident. I mean, if I would be skeptical about my decision, I have a problem, but they are not confident about the decision. That's really, I believe it's a really problem that I'm not confident about my decisions. Mm-hmm. So database decisions make them more confident about the quality of the decision. So, and then we ask them, okay, what is the impact here? And with academic research shows that the self-perception of my financial performance compared to key competitors is a very strong indicator of your real financial performance that you would get from financial statements. And as financial statements in a timely manner are not available and not for all companies, we use this as a proxy. And we asked participants about their relative performance compared to key competitors, whether it's much better or much worse on a 7-point scale in terms of revenue growth, profit, and margin or profitability. And across all 4 criteria, the data kings are better than their key competitors, which means there is a competitive advantage in database decision making. And of course, there's also impact or a difference compared to the data laggards. They are systematically lower. So data So data kings believe they are better than competitors and data kings. So if data laggards would engage in database decision making, they would receive a competitive advantage. And data kings at least would, and this makes also perfectly sense, if data kings believe they are slightly better than their key competitors, and the majority of companies does not sufficiently engage in database decision making, they probably consider themselves in relationship to key competitors that are less data literate, because less than half engages in database decision making, as we learned from the study. And that's why the key competitors are not considered being as literate as they are. I hope I answered both questions.
Wouldn't this make sense that if a company is a data king, it means that it's a mature company, most probably a big player in the market? So their main competitor, I would expect at least, to be also key players in the market. So meaning a big company with a big revenue. So would my assumption be correct that a data king is most usually compared versus another data king?
I don't think so. I think that in each industry, there is an equal distribution of companies using more database decision making or less. So if you look into a pool of 25 companies, we probably have data kings, and they compare themselves, let's say 5 data kings, and they compare them against the other 20. They don't necessarily be at the same level of data literacy. So you can be really big. And my retail clients, my smallest retail client has 1 billion revenue. So you can be really big and don't base your decisions on data. So I think there's a not so strong correlation. The correlation that I personally see, not proven, is that e-commerce companies tend to be more data-driven than stationary businesses in general, and that's the nature of the industry, and also the nature of the people working in e-commerce. They usually have a strong and quantitative background. That's the only difference I see. But the volume or the size of your company is not necessarily an indicator on whether you make database decisions.
It's clear. So no correlation in that. And of course, it makes sense because there are many different companies, many different strategies, very different mindsets into that. But, it was a question that I really had in my mind from my experience. But usually when I was working in a major retail, one of the top players in the market, my main competitors were actually big players in the market. But yes, now that you're mentioning it, it's true that not all had the same literacy. And that's why back then I used to have an advantage, even though besides their size.
Yes.
Thanks for pointing it out, actually. So I want to dive a bit deeper right now and looking at situations that the database decisions affect the most. We see that around 59% feel that it's important for some specific areas of the business, like pricing, promotions, purchases, assortment, product placement, forecasting, and marketing campaigns. Of course, no surprise here to see that the most important of them are actually purchasing, forecasting, pricing, and assortment management. Where it gets actually interesting is when we add the AI support in here, something new and very trendy today. And only 1/3 feel that it will play an important role, and even fewer, around 1/5, are either currently using or investing to use it in the near future. So I have a multiple choice question for you here. So you think that, first of all, AI is not yet ready to undertake such important decisions. B, people lack the literacy to understand how AI could possibly assist? C, do people have trust issues towards AI? And D, is it a combination of the above or something totally different?
My experience is that companies who are not involved in AI-based decisions or even data-based decisions lack the imagination on what AI can do for them. And if they believe that's a plug-in solution like a black box that solves all problems, it is not the case. So in this case, I would doubt that AI would be mature enough any time in the future to solve the whole problem. They should consider it rather as a tool to make specific decisions that are based on data, like finding the right parameter instead of a magic number that you plug in as a gut feeling. For example, if you make pricing decisions and you make a decision about your minimum margin, usually the margin comes out of your mind and your gut and your experience, and now it's 12%. Why is it 12%? Nobody knows. Database decisions and AI can help to tweak the dials in your decisions. So AI is not yet ready because I believe AI should take over everything. But I also think it's about trust. Currently, you still make the decision as of today, and now you ask them, hey, no, AI, artificial intelligence takes over, so it takes it away from you, and you receive kind of only a side role, and the main part of the whole movie goes to the AI. And this trust issue is, I think, the biggest one. The feeling of being replaced or found out that the computer can make decisions better than you do. In this case, companies should place their top decision makers into the driver's seat who uses AI as a tool to make a decision, not being replaced by the tool. I think that's a big problem. And lastly, companies don't see what you can do with database decisions and AI-based decisions. So it's always a journey. So you first start with defining your mental model, how you make a decision, and find out, okay, actually here I make assumptions, very strong assumptions that I'm now aware of. Now I back them by data, and the process of backing them by data can be streamlined with the help of AI. And this is really important to understand. As of today, if the feeling is, okay, you have to be a product expert to make your decisions or a marketing campaign expert to make a decision, you lack the imagination on how AI can help you. And I think these are the three big points here, that AI is overestimated or receives too much expectation on what it should deliver. You lack the imagination on where it can help you. And lastly, it's a trust issue and also a personal value issue.
And if I understand correctly, your suggestion is that it would be wise to people and companies start slowly implementing it as a support tool in order to better streamline the data and let them take the decisions and understand and have something ready to work with and not create everything from scratch.
And I couldn't agree more. That's how I would do it. It's people are driving AI, not vice versa.
And since we're talking about people, I would like if you can match for me the people's roles and who are exactly the ones that can benefit from database decisions. I mean, people see, let's say, database. Okay, is it for me? I'm in accounting, I'm in pricing, I'm in logistics, I'm in purchasing, I'm in whatever department. But can we put, let's say, a face in the people that can actually benefit from taking a more educated decision on data?
I would start actually with the top management. So when we ask our participants in the study about to which extent does your company's management require database decisions, and does not leave you out of the room with kind of gut feeling based approach. So where do they demand data-based decisions? And the data kings, the answer is mostly, and for the data laggards, it's sometimes. So this also means if the database decision-making framework is demanded from the top, the whole company will probably follow. So you need to be a role model to do it. So the CEO should demand it, and then it has a demand effect within the company. So it triples down. So, and in lower functional roles, I see two roles here. For example, in logistics, the head of logistics should be responsible for creating this process on how to make decisions within the teams, and the team members, so the logistics experts and who make actually the decisions within the logistic network and supply chain, they benefit from carrying out these decisions and making the decisions based on what they have as a decision support system there. So again, the functional manager creates the process and makes sure that they have the system in place, whereas the functional experts benefit from carrying out the decisions and providing feedback again to the management.
It's obviously that's the main frame that if it's going to work, it's absolutely necessary to do that. But what I wanted to say more that people that might look into our discussion,
yes,
and somebody's a pricing manager, does this apply to him? If he's a marketing manager, in the marketing department. So I wanted to be a bit, if we can, more specific and give some examples that, for example, what comes to my mind is that a pricing manager, a purchase manager, probably somebody from the product management team. So, I want to help people identify that, oh, yes, I'm in this role in my company. So, yes, I haven't thought of it. And I might get value from that. I might make my work easier. I might make my work faster, more error-free, more effective, have better results.
Yeah, very good point. Example, your annual purchase price negotiations. That's usually done by the purchasing team. So you have a purchasing procurement manager or a vendor manager who talks to the manufacturers about the price for this year, how to collaborate on specific marketing campaigns, and so on. Database decisions can help you prepare for these annual negotiations. Like, the price development of your ingredients for your products, how the price of your competitors developed, the importance of your channel for your vendor, how important other competing brands are important, and how important are other retailers, for example, for this brand. So this can all be developed by data, and you can prepare your negotiations. For pricing, it's also very obvious. You make decisions about your shelf price, your markdown price, and also some promotions. And also here, you use data to make all of these decisions and automate them. As an assortment manager or category manager, you make decisions about which items to list into your assortment or list out again. Where do I have selection or assortment gaps by, for example, looking at competitor information and the assortment they offer. Forecasts and projections are usually used by any team, for example, supply chain management, but also the finance team. How do you make your current forecast? Sometimes it's honestly gut feeling. They look into the year to date. They look into, year to date from today on until the end of last year. How was the uplift last year? And they just apply the uplift from the remaining time of this year, looking back at the incremental uplift of last year, what has happened in this, and they just extrapolate the trend. Maybe you can do it smarter. You can use marketing campaigns. Which items do you need to put into your marketing campaign? What is the required discount level? And what is the right promotional format? When do you have a price reduction? When do you share discount coupons? When do you place a multi-buy promotion like buy X, get Y? How do you do it? Or for product placement and presentation, which item do you place into your shelf in which order? Where do you put it in there? It's not only about the shelf listing fees that your vendors paid you, but maybe there's something more, a scientific way to present it. How do you sort your internal search results? In your category pages, where do you place your items? In your shelves and stores, where do you place the items in which order? How often do you place the same items multiple times in your store? And what should be the price difference, whether it's close to the cashier or at the beginning? Yet all these decisions can be based on data and not just intelligent guesses.
It was a great detailed answer because, I want people to be able to understand that, is it for me? I mean, it's fantastic, all this. Is it for me, though? Yeah, and the answer is obviously yes. For most of the people in a modern retail, e-commerce, or wholesale company, it's for they can benefit from that. As we're discussing this, and you began discussing about upper management in your question, and they are the ones that dictate how the game of the company is going to be played out. So in your feeling, do you think that companies with data play actually the long or the short-term game? And if you see any correlation on the choice based on how data literate each company is?
My perception is that those companies who engage in data-based decision-making, they play the long game. Because the assumption behind data-based decision-making is already long-term thinking. The long-term thinking is about, I believe in the long run, we benefit from data-based decision-making instead of gut feelings decisions that might us serve in the short term. So that's my first impression. My second observation is that more and more companies engage in Gen AI projects. And the starting point is not so much we have a wonderful use case and we save money and or make money. It's about we teach our company to use Gen AI as a tool. We don't know exactly for which use case, and there are so many out there, but having the capability of making the whole company fluent in applying Gen AI, that's really helpful. I mean, I'm talking about companies where you have low-level entry position people who never use Gen AI or ChatGPT at home, and now the first time the company slowly takes them by the hand and shows them how to do it, to lose kind of any skepticism about this and to actually create some sense of excitement about what Gen AI can do for us, although we just don't know as of today what we can do with it if we look into the future. But the long-term game is we use database decisions or artificial intelligence or even Gen AI as a company's capability, because this makes us better in the long run than if we don't do it. And of course, it is a long-run decision because training the company in the short term costs a lot of money. But they still make this bet into the future.
So it's actually creating a process, either by tools or by teaching people new things, creating a new mindset, actually. And with the thing, don't work the task, work the process. So when you work the process, you just start today in order to reap your fruits 2 years or 3 years or 1 year ahead in time.
Yes, exactly. Fantastic summary.
So if you have to advise a company that hasn't been there before in the data decision-making process, and they want to start their journey towards making more educated decisions, what would your advice be, and what would be some milestones in this process? Obviously, I'm not asking you to have a deep dive in here, but let's have an outline.
We should start first with baby steps. And the first project should be a proof of concept that database decision making works better than before. And to do this, we should first start with evaluating all possible use cases that we can do. Let's say we start with pricing. And within pricing, we define 30 to 20 use cases that we can make better, where we make currently decisions and probably we can do it better. For example, what is our shelf price for a specific branded product? How do we price products that are close to expiration, like in the grocery context? How do I price seasonal items? How do I price bundles? How do I price my private brand product compared to competitor price product? What is my implicit discount for a multi-pack, like 6-pack versus 1-pack? What is my implicit rebate compared 1 liter versus half a liter bottle? And many, many others. I have products that I can configure, so it's a sum of its parts. And there's so many decisions I can make. For example, in our stores, we can only change prices for 200 items, and we need to replace the price tag. We can only afford to do 200 per day. Which 200 price changes should I make? I mean, that's really a decision. Okay, and then you have all your decisions, and you say, okay, these 5 to 7 are the most important ones. And for these, I write down how I do it today and think about how I could do it better. So at the very first step, you define what are the 5 to 7 decisions that make your life better. Honestly, you should start first with this one. You need to find a software vendor that helps you carrying this out. Don't go into the rabbit hole of trying to implement this in Excel. There is so much professional pricing software in this case out there that can help you there. And you don't have to get into a marriage for now and forever. Start with a proof of concept. So then you would select with a very structured RFP process your pricing software partner or software vendor partner in general. Find your data sources if you need it from outside, and find your internal data sources, put it together, and then start a MVP or proof of concept phase for a few weeks. And you measure the impact of what has happened. And ideally, it's better than before. And with these results, you create a lighthouse product that you can market internally. So you start with an important decision, not like adjacent decision that is not important. You found the top 5 decisions within this domain, and you piloted it in a business unit or region that is not too small. So it's too small to be meaningful and not too big. So if something goes down, you probably don't want to hurt your business substantially, but mid-size, so to say. Mm-hmm. So if it's successful, everybody believes that's good, and not a small market, for example. And then you have your lighthouse project. And then you take it from there. Then you roll this out and you look into the next use case. But you create momentum. And everybody who was engaged there learned that it's better and developed experience. So the same product team can probably move to the next project.
Markus, would you use specific people dedicated for this process?
Yes. Usually, if you engage in this kind of projects, nobody did it before. So either you hire somebody from outside, you can do it, but I wouldn't recommend it. I would take somebody who is a rising star in the company, who knows the company and is very passionate about this topic. For example, if you do it in pricing or in marketing automation or in assortment, somebody who leads the organization that they create. Usually you create a team then, like the pricing team, or you are within category management, you have category automation or something like this. And this person should lead this and take 1 or 2 other internal advocates for this project. And then it depends. Either this team creates the organization and sits there, or creates kind of internal consulting team that wants to implement artificial intelligence products across the company. But I would always have a dedicated organization. Otherwise, if it's a half-time job or half-day job, you lose your attention, and sometimes you need to laser focus.
So dedication is and focus is a key part in this transition.
Yes.
And since we mentioned that, when a company makes this transition, obviously the road it's not a walk into a field of roses. No. Difficulties will arise, challenges will arise, obstacles will arise. In your experience, what are the most common ones that you have observed and addressed?
Yes. So assuming the company wants to start, because this is already something that's not obviously clear. If you need to convince somebody that this is important, it won't work. So you have a strong sponsor at the top who says, we need to do this because that's important. The way we make decisions in this field is not optimal. I know it can be better. And this field of decision making is really important. So let's do it. Okay. And then you start. The first thing you recognize is kind of reluctance sometimes. That you say, okay, you want to take away this decision from me, the system can make it better. If they are affected by this project and not driving this project, that's a big problem. So you may need to involve those whose decisions are affected and to help them design the solution, selecting kind of for example, the software vendor, so they feel in the driver's seat, configure the system, creating the decision rules, for example, in the decision tree, and this is really important. So reluctance and the solution is involved them. The second is the data infrastructure. 60% of the project duration is usually about getting the data from different silos, setting up APIs towards outside systems and getting back the data. If you get the data, how to automatically put them into the ERP system, for example. Mm-hmm. So the data is, although it looks like a boring, mundane task, that's really critical. And similar to this is, if you involve a big IT team and they believe they can do it themselves better, which some teams I know they can always think they can do it, you engage in make or buy decisions that can last forever. That's also a big problem. These are the three things: reluctance and trust, getting the data together, and fighting with the IT team not to buy and not to build it themselves.
The next thing that I had in my mind is that I believe the answer is yes, that if you would agree that if we take outside all the technical stuff like the process, the tools, the data, or any other technical requirement, the main component of the successful transition towards better data literacy or starting your data literacy and capitalize from that is always the human factor and how this human factor is committed in doing so. Would you agree on that?
I totally agree. It's the success of any database decision-making project is a 90% people and 10% technology. You need the people at the top to create kind of a starting point, like of momentum. And of course, the people in this project keep this fire forward and keep it going. Or in other words, if you have the best technology on this planet and the people are not engaged, nothing will happen. But if you have only the second best technology and everybody wants to have it, the company will strive. Yes.
I totally agree with that, because in my experience, and that's why I ask you that, is that people are the determining factor if something, doesn't matter if it's going to be data or something else, is going to succeed or fail. How resistant people are going to be to change. And it's something that I have encountered, and I'm sure that you have also encountered with your clients, that people tend to resist. I know how to do this. I've been doing this for the past X amount of years. So why change? It's like the morning coffee. I don't want to change.
Yeah, you are right. And that's my experience also. The projects in this field start if we see a change in senior management. So not a mind shift change, but a position change. Somebody new gets in, sees how it's going on, and saw something different in the past. So he doesn't have this mindset, okay, it worked in the past. If I see this here, I saw something else working, and something else that I saw somewhere else was better than what you are doing. So there must be an uplift potential. So a change in senior management is a great catalyst for these kind of projects.
I totally agree. Markus, that's all from my side. It has been fantastic, first of all, talking to you, looking into this great study that you make, and giving me the time to further analyze a few things and going a bit deeper, and also giving a broader, putting this in a very broader, let's say, term and a perspective, that how this data fit in actually the environment, the people, the changes that occur, the problems that may have, because people start hearing about data, AI, and say, fantastic, just on a push of a button, something magical is going to happen. No, that's not the case. People need to work with that, struggle with that. It's there to help them and boost them and lift them and create something new for their company, for the role, for their team. But somebody has to tackle that in a more, let's say, enthusiastic and committed way.
You're absolutely right.
Markus, thank you very, very much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a very, very great conversation. Thank you, Alex.
Let's hope to talk again very, very soon.
I look forward to it.